We are back on the town hall now. And when was the last time you drove on the Scajaquada in Buffalo, also known as the 198? Was it maybe to get downtown, or did you use it to cut across from the 33 to the 190? Well, experts say fewer people are doing that. Fewer drivers using the road to get in and out of the city. And they say that's negating the need for it to be an expressway. There are also some safety concerns. This conversation has been in the works for the past 20 years, looking at countless options on what to do. The State Department of Transportation wasn't able to nail down a plan that the community supported, so a regional group took all of this over. The Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council came up with 4 different options. They used 39 metrics to survey the community and stakeholders, and they came up with some mixed results. And so the group created a new hybrid scenario using the parts that were ranked the highest from each of those pitches. Here are kind of the nuts and bolts of what the plan is going to be. This is no longer going to be an expressway connecting the 33 and the 190. Instead, it will have one lane in each direction, new bike paths, sidewalks, crosswalks, and tree-lined median, along with some additional street parking. Another big change is that the ramps to the 190 at Niagara Street will be removed. I know it's a lot to digest, so joining us live to help us understand the decision and what happens next is Hal Morse with the Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council. He's a former executive director and now manages this program on reimagining the Scajaquada. Great to have you on here tonight. And I know that you announced that you're going with this sort of hybrid plan last night. I wonder, for people who are living near the Scajaquada, drivers who use it regularly, what do they need to know about what was kind of decided last night?
Right, and last night we did have our public review of this new parkway concept. And as you mentioned, this project had gone on for 18 years with no ability to come to a conclusion. And then the governor at that time and the state transportation commissioner asked us as an independent agency to take a look. So the first few months of what we did was, as you mentioned, working out in the community to understand what's really important to people, and came up with things like mobility. How do you get around? How do you access what you need? How do we replenish our natural resources, creek, park? And then how do you also leverage inclusive economic development in this greater part of the region that is the middle of our city? It's been historically a great place, but we called it Region Central. So then to get to how you then start to build those scenarios, we collected extensive data last year in terms of where people live, where they're going, where they shop, where they have done that, how much travel time it takes. And from that, we were able then to build scenarios and evaluate them using those 39 metrics. So we looked at how the Scajaquada is not really functioning like it was originally constructed for, and it's in need of some upgrades or some kind of treatment. So we looked at how can you rebuild your communities, kind of turn this around, and how can we use the investment in infrastructure to help that happen? Again, our natural resources, getting to places, getting to shopping, getting to work. So we then looked at how do you take those parameters and look at the kinds of options you have. And then out of that, when we evaluated them using those metrics, we came up to this hybrid scenario that is a parkway, and you described it pretty well. There still are connections to the 33 and the 190, but since it's not an expressway, it doesn't have the elevated structures, but it is still connected. So we were then able to look at, again, the types of trips people make, how the expressway treats them now, and some of the neighborhoods are cut off, so it takes more travel time to actually get to your destinations. We look not only at vehicles, but how people walk, and there's a large amount of walk trips to many of the destinations in that area too, as well as other modes, including transit and cycles and things like that.
Hal, I know that there are people watching right now who are going to look at this and say, oh, it's, you know, right now driving the 198 is a strange thing, right? Because the speed limit is so low, but it feels like an expressway. Obviously, it's not working right now. But for the people who are watching who are like, I use this roadway to quickly get from one side of the city to the other, do you anticipate having to kind of deal with that feedback?
Oh, sure. And we've talked to people all along the way. So we use that data, and we look at, now there's just not one road, but we looked at what are all the options in terms of being able to get people where they need to go, and how can we configure that so people still have that same access, or even better, using reconfigured it's a larger approach to it when we look at the kinds of transportation access that's available and how we would construct it to do that.
So what happens now, right? You mentioned we've talked about this for nearly 2 decades. 18 years is a long time. So now you
Right.
kind of have come up with this new model. What is the time frame, or what other processes have to take place before you get kind of moving along with actually doing construction?
Yeah, we're a couple months away from being done with this part, and now that we have an indication of potentially the preferred scenario, if you will, that is the Parkway approach, that, as you mentioned, is takes the best parts of the four previous alternatives. So next step is we will do a complete initial cost estimate on it to see what it's going to take to do that. And of course, we don't have design detail yet, so we can kind of bound it in terms of costs. Also, we're looking at what will be the environmental review process and how do we take what we've done and insert into that process and get it done. And then work on with all the actors, which will be not only DOT, city, transportation authority, and others, but how do we then work together to take all the projects that we need and want to do to get the results that we want, and how do we sequence them? How do we get them fully funded, and how do we initiate the process? Obviously, there's other projects going on now, like the Kensington is moving right along. Other projects in other cities too. So we're kind of looking at how do we fit in, how do we do that, and get it moving quickly. That was probably the most asked question last night was, when is this going to happen, and what do we have to do to get it done?
Yeah, people are always looking for that conclusatory answer, right? Like when is it going to be done? We hope you'll come back on, Hal, as you have more developments. Hal Morris is with the Greater Buffalo Niagara Regional Transportation Council. Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much.